Hey friends, this is an example of a pastor's library, and there are a lot of resources here that help in being a pastor, knowing your theology, provoking some good thoughts to spark ministry and ideas. Each pastor's library should be uniquely geared toward him and his ministry and his needs, the things that he has encountered. Let me give you a little tour. The first shelf here has many Bibles on it, and some of them are old, replicas of older versions in English. We move over, get into some original languages, the Septuagint. There's a really thick Biblia Graeca, which has the Septuagint and the Nestle-Aland text in it. We have here some more Greek Bibles, a Latin Bible, the Old Cambridge History of the Bible, which is still very worthwhile even though it's decades old, the New Cambridge History of the Bible, which is really worthwhile. Many small articles in those volumes that are like, we're just reading an entire book, I think, a book's worth of knowledge. Some more stuff about the text of Scripture. We get into the Loeb Classical series here. Ammianus Marcellinus at the beginning, Bede, Boethius, Cicero, all of Pliny. You have to buy that in the Loeb Classical Library if you want to have Pliny unabridged, Pliny the Elder, so you can understand the state of science and knowledge in Rome in the first century. Very helpful for getting a mind, the mind of a person in the first century who was during the period of the New Testament. Get into the Greek volumes, which are green here. And Dio Chrysostom is really helpful at understanding the Greek mind in the period soon after the origins of Christianity. And Epictetus, a Stoic slave philosopher who has a lot of stuff that's worth reading. A lot of parallels to New Testament thought. We go on here, Julian the Apostate, and Philostratus, all of Plutarch's Moralia, which is just like Dio Chrysostom in its value, meaning it will just help you to think like a person living at the time of early Christianity. The Landmark series of histories, kind of like a study Bible version of some of these histories with maps and notes, helps. There are 2 volumes of translations and commentary on inscriptions, Greco-Roman associations throughout the Roman Greek world. Get to some other classical era, late classical era volumes here. And these all are very helpful for me as a pastor. Helps me to have a mind that thinks like a person during the biblical era. There are 3 volumes here, which are very unique. I don't know if you can see them. Plutarch's Ethical Writings and Early Christian Literature, and Plutarch's Theological Writings and Early Christian Literature. All the parallels and concepts and language and vocabulary between Plutarch and the New Testament. Also, Dio Chrysostom is down there. We get down here to the Codex of Justinian. And then we get to the Cambridge Ancient Histories. I don't have all of them, but I just have bought them as I've needed them. Above that, just sitting on top, some stuff I didn't have room for. Atlas of Ancient Rome. We have Gibbon, Decline and Fall, a Petrologia Graeca volume of Origen with his book Against Celsus in it. And we move on to a couple of Oxford histories, Oxford handbooks. The one on late antiquity is very good. And New Cambridge Medieval History replaces Bury's volumes from a century ago. Barbarian histories here. Quickly, we move ahead to the Reformation there on my histories. We have the beginnings of some Christian history reference works, Schaff. There's a 3-volume encyclopedia there, which I go to all the time. We have some Christian histories, just general stuff leading up to early Christianity. Some there's gospel fragments. This is really interesting to find old gospels, fragments from Oxyrhynchus that aren't a part of the canonical gospels. Some of them appear to have Gnostic origins, but anyway, really neat to read. We also have some commentaries on Apostolic Fathers, Odes of Solomon, 4 volumes of Patrology, the Ante-Nicene Fathers. I have scattered volumes of the Nicene and Post-Nicene Fathers. We work into late antiquity, some of the late Church Fathers, 4th century and forward. One on Epiphanius of Cyprus over here, really awesome. Up here, a couple of volumes laying down, just random. Interior of the Medieval Church, Sermons on Job by John Calvin, a facsimile. I get into some medieval stuff here. I don't have a whole lot of medieval works. Peter Lombard, Standard Systematic Theology, before Thomas Aquinas was made the standard theologian by the Catholic Church. Peter Damien's Letters. Down here, an interesting book by Peter Damien, Against Sodomy by the monks, committed by the monks in their monasteries. And get to the works of Erasmus here. I don't have all of them, of course. But I get them when they're on sale, when they're cheap. Very interesting to read, especially the adages. Some of the best reading. You can quickly gain some wisdom from the adages. Luther's works. Just have what I need or what I can get. And we work into the time of the Reformation, and the Puritans will be coming up here in just a little bit. Several Puritan works, Puritan history, history of the dissenters there on the very end, 3 volumes. John Bunyan, one of the most valuable devotional writers I think you could possibly read. Richard Baxter's Christian Directory, one of the most worthwhile volumes that you could use as a pastor when it comes to counseling and solving just some general problems. Some Banner of Truth volumes up here. Thomas Brooks and John Newton. There's some others. Get into some Puritan paperbacks here. The complete works of Augustus Toplady. I don't see that very often. He has a history of England in there, very strange. Diary of Thomas Turner, that's good. The Sermons of George Whitefield, and some more stuff working into American Puritanism. That biography in the very end of Increase Mather, really awesome to read. And of course, Kenneth Silverman's biography on Cotton Mather is really good. You should have lots of books on Cotton Mather. He's an inspiration. He wrote so many books. He really founded evangelical Christianity in America, whether we know it or not. Some more stuff getting into Jonathan Edwards' works and things about Jonathan Edwards. Get into some of the Yale series, but those are so expensive. It's hard to really get them. Of course, you can read them online, but who actually reads stuff online? Robert Louis Dabney, you can get the 3 volumes of his discussions from the Banner of Truth, but you can get the other 2 to complete your set from Sprinkle Publications. And they're really good at helping you to get to know Dabney and who the man was and how he faced challenges and just his personality. Some stuff on Hodge and the Princeton period that evangelicals tend to pay attention to, early Princeton period prior to like 1920, I guess. Getting up to some stuff here in the corner on Emerson and transcendentalism, his impact on American thought, especially American theological thought, could never be underestimated. Got some awesome volumes of tracts here. In the old days in America, tracts were the most popular kind of writing, kind of reading. Everyone read tracts. They were easy to print, easy to come a hold of, and you can get this 6-volume set from Solid Ground Christian Books, and it's the best devotional reading, I think. you could possibly read. Got some more stuff here, scatterings of Banner of Truth volumes, and got a little bit of Spurgeon. For a while I was reading a Spurgeon sermon each morning before I went to work, and that was awesome. I still remember doing that and the impact it had on me. Some more contemporary things getting into the 20th century, which I tend not to pay as much attention to, but it's still obviously important. Soon we get past all of the theology, we begin to get to stuff that deals with the Bible directly. A few books on exegesis, a few of those IVP dictionaries, just as I've needed them. Background on the Old Testament here. We get into commentaries on biblical books. Some books I have many commentaries on, some I have few. It's just as I've taught through the books or have needed commentaries that I've acquired them. And see down here we get into the historical books. You see I have very little on certain things. But I enjoy what I do have. There's a couple things up there in binders. Giordani's History of the Goths and Eusebius and Jerome's Chronicon. Stuff on the Psalms, Proverbs. I love all the commentaries they have on the Proverbs. The Proverbs, my favorite book of the Bible. So much wisdom there. We get into the prophets. I love this series here, the Teach the Text series. As a pastor, Bible teacher, that is indispensable. It's done so much work for you to gain some of the teaching points, and you can really start working from there. Not much on the minor prophets. We get into the intertestamental period, Second Temple literature. And really like these commentaries on the book of First Enoch, Fourth Ezra. It's good. Some of the Anchor Bible commentaries. This 3-volume set, Outside the Bible, is just like a study Bible version of a lot of Hellenistic Jewish literature and pseudepigrapha, apocrypha, Josephus. Really awesome set. Highly recommended. This is a highly recommended set here. It's everything that the Greek and Latin authors of the classical period wrote on Jews and Judaism from the time of Herodotus all the way up till Justinian closed the school at Athens. Really insightful. This is a book that really did a lot for me at understanding the end of first century Judaism, end of Jerusalem as it was, and the temple, and really highly recommended. Continue through the intertestamental period, Jewish rabbinic literature, get into the New Testament backgrounds here, stuff on Jesus specifically, and get to the Gospels. That commentary on Betts and the Sermon on the Mount is really awesome, especially if you have an interest in the classical period, you have an interest in the Greco-Roman moralists, and you can see a lot of parallels in thought between the Sermon on the Mount and Epictetus, and just the Stoics and Cynics, and it's just awesome. Get into the end of the Gospels and to the lone historical book in the New Testament, the book of Acts. This 4-volume set by Keener is really helpful. I'm teaching through the book of Acts in my church right now, and I heavily rely on Keener and all the stuff he has in terms of his background knowledge. We move along here, getting into the epistles. I've had a lot of other commentaries over the years, but as I've lightened my library and thinned it out, I've had to get rid of some. Currently have somewhere around 1,200 books cataloged on Library Thing. So you can't buy books forever. You have to carefully and thoughtfully select what you're going to have. Here are several books on languages. This is one of the best books if you've taken your courses in Greek and you're ready to learn what it is to read Hellenistic Greek so you can feel more at home in the New Testament. And that patristic Greek reader on the end is a really easy starting point too. Systematic theologies. Some of them are good for reading all the way through, like Erickson was helpful. Grudem I haven't finished it, read 900 pages of it, and never got back to it, but he's still really helpful. Some more practical books on theology. The 3-volume Theocratic Kingdom is a unique book. I think it was the 19th century that G.N.H. Peters, a Lutheran, wrote this large defense of premillennialism against the millennialism or postmillennialism that was more popular in his time. Really a good, worthwhile book to read. Spirituality at the end. Some more devotional books down here. And several pamphlets and booklets there. Over here I have a replica of the 1611 King James. The 5 volumes of Lightfoot on the Apostolic Fathers. A bunch of books on Mormonism. A minister in Utah. It's helpful to know that. Get into a few counseling volumes. Those quick reference books are really helpful. Addressing a variety of issues there's no way that the average pastor could have time to be prepared for. And so those help you get prepared very quickly and biblically. At the very end of this shelf we get to philosophy, which to me has been a huge help as a pastor, helping me to think properly and rightly and historically about different truths and where people are coming from and where I'm coming from. Get into the Cambridge histories here. And those are really good shortcuts at learning the history of philosophy, which I think it's more important to study the history of philosophy than it is to study philosophy itself. A volume from the Cambridge History of Late Antiquity is on my desk, so I've been reading a chapter in there right now. Some more stuff here, and then we get into the modern period. And I just get what I think I'm needing to read about, what's worthwhile. There's some more stuff. Get to the history of science just a little bit. I have slight interest in that. We have a bunch of atlases down here, all of which I love. I love looking at atlases. And then just the bottom shelf here. A few random things at the very end. Oh, and I didn't show you this. The best atlas you can get, even as a Bible atlas, is the Barrington Atlas of the Greek and Roman World. Above it is the Bible Project's Illustrated Summaries of Biblical Books, which is the book. It's basically a bunch of posters with descriptions of each biblical book in a visual way. But there you have it. One pastor's library, ranging from biblical commentaries to many works on the 4th century AD and things that help me. But I would encourage you to continue to build your library, and more importantly, read your library and have goals for your reading. Otherwise, you're not going to read anything. So you make a goal. I'm going to read this book so many days a night, or days a week, and read 10 pages, 20 pages, maybe 50 pages. But you do it, you'll get through it, and you'll be a lot more thankful for it. You'll think differently than you did before. But you'll never do it if you don't buy books. And if you say, I'm going to read them on my Kindle, well, you're probably not going to do it there either, because no one actually reads long books on their Kindles. You only read them in paper form. So get paper books. And I hope this has been an inspiration for you. And I hope to see more of your videos out there, of your libraries, so I can be inspired by your libraries. Have a great day.